Today, I want to talk about the notion of anger. Anger is the energy, like fire. You know, Chinese people describe an angry person as a person with a lot of fire. When we talk about raging and being furious, we talk about fire boiling over. It heats up and it erupts. Fire can burn. The burning is not always bad, because at the end of the fire, you may find that the fire had purified certain things. We boil water. I grew up in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. When I was growing up, I lived in a neighborhood where we barely have plumbing. My mother grew up in the neighborhood where every morning she has to walk half a mile to a hydrant type community tap to carry buckets of water home for use for the day. And I grew up in a house where we had no flush toilets. Today, as I look back, we live in the comfort of a nice home in Texas, and I flush the toilet. I have a bidet. I don't even have to run and get involved with the toilet paper rush. But back then, I had one pair of school shoes. I had one pair of rubber flip-flops. First 5 days of the week, I lived in school uniform. We had 2 sets of school uniforms, white blouse and a pinafore. We didn't have underwear where you can go to Victoria's Secret. You know, you spend 5 times the amount of money for a piece of dental floss at Victoria's Secret. Sometimes I look at it and say, why do you even bother? What's the point of wearing underwear? Now I look back, you know, when I was a kid, I had custom-made underwear. My mother would get scrap pieces of fabric from my aunt, who was a tailor, and she would cut little triangles and sew them together and put elastic band, and that's our underwear. Of course, they never fit properly, but who cares? We didn't know any different. And so we grew up, half the time we're barefoot, and if we wear flip-flops. So those of you who are doctors will know, we were kids. One of the most common ailments we had was to step on a rusty nail. Why? Because we don't have shoes. And also another very common pediatric ailment is worms. Worms. I see Celine nodding his head. My parents had 8 children. Certain times of the year, mom would have a bottle of liquid that is the deworming medicine, and she'll be giving tablespoons of deworming fluid to us. And if the cousins were there, everybody get the deworming fluid, and it is horrible. And it's also good because the next day you go to the bathroom and all these, some of the worms that come out are still moving. There are 3 kinds that were common. Hookworms, which you get walking barefoot on the grass. And roundworms, I have no idea where that come from. Maybe Dr. Long can help us with that. And tapeworms, which is the worst. Tapeworms come from eating fish and animal products. The liver, which was a delicacy, the liver flukes, the eggs are in the liver. We eat them and we go through that cycle. I think Dr. Long will remember I did a science project showing the life cycle of liver fluke, and we had to dissect cats and look at the livers. Anyway, we had no seat belts. We have no helmets. And if you're lucky to ride in a car, my dad had a little mini Cooper type, not Cooper, but a little mini station wagon, a very tiny little station wagon with 8 children. Right? I'm lucky if I find somebody's lap because I'm number 5. I'm lucky if I get somebody's lap to sit on. Nobody had a seatbelt. We pick something up from the floor and we put it in our mouth. You know, mom buys 1 long bar of soap and cut it into little pieces, right? For us to wash and bathe. My parents never went to a parent-teacher conference. God help you if the principal requests to meet your parents. It's not because they say, oh, your daughter is so smart. It is, your daughter is in serious trouble that we have to talk to you. We don't ever want to see you or your child again in our school. So things were very different. And yet, I think if you see Dr. Long, he would smile and say, well, we somehow turned out all right, didn't we? Right? You had an illustrious career as a doctor. And then we recently met up with some of our classmates from 50 years ago. Everybody seemed to be doing all right and made their way. And it's nice to be an older person to look back and say, you know what? You don't have to be so scared. It works. My parents never had a choice as to what school to send us to. You get to go to the school that will take you. My parents didn't have a choice to select universities for us to attend. My parents couldn't read or write. My dad learned to sign his name in English so that people at school wouldn't laugh at me. And those were the only English words he could write. He practiced until he could sign my report card. We went to the British Council, the USIS, and find out how to apply to a university abroad. We went through the whole process, just ourselves and whoever counselor was there to help us. We applied for our own passport, booked our own travel. And the next thing I know was, not having been 200 miles away from my home, I was on a plane to London University. I was 18, 17 years old. I look back now, I don't think I have the courage to do it again. But what you don't know won't scare you. Nobody sat down and tell me all the horrible things that would happen to me so that I would be stuck. I knew I wanted to get out of there. I knew I wanted to do something better. I knew that was my only chance to be better is to go to school. That was the only choice I knew. And so scary as it was, I took the plunge. So how is this going to relate to all the things we want to talk about today? I have worked with so many people in the last 16 years of this portion of my career. It boils down to very simple pieces. It's all about fear. If ever you see a client in the future or a friend who's in a lot of trouble, the ultimate question is, what are you really afraid of? What are you really afraid of? We are scared, and when we are scared, we make bad choices. Well, I better sell my stock today because the stock market is going to crash tomorrow. Well, nobody knows that, but you are banking on the fear that it's going to crash, so I'm going to make this decision today. It may be a good decision, it may be a bad decision. You have a 50-50 chance because nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Most of us did not grow up with teachers or parents who would sit us down and give us this perfect algorithm of how to make a choice. How do you make a choice? Most of us are scared to make a choice. So we tell our parents, our teachers, our friends, whoever it is, our counselors, and say, tell me what to do. Or some people would say, well, I have this choice and I have this choice. Which one should I make? Just like Alice in Wonderland at the cross paths in the forest asked the Cheshire Cat, hey, which path should I take? And the Cheshire Cat asked Alice, where do you want to go? Alice said, well, I don't know. Well, if you don't know where you want to go, it doesn't matter what choice you make. The what ifs come from fear. If I marry this guy today, I hope to live happily ever after. And then what? Fast forward 15 years. And this is where I have to tell you this little joke. There are 3 ways to make love. You fall in love, you get married, you're so excited. You do it in the kitchen because you can't wait till you get to bed. You're so excited about each other. And then a few years down the road, you get so comfortable with each other. You say, oh, heck, let's wait. Let's wait till we're comfortable and go to the bedroom. And then further down the road, you do what I call the hallway sex. You can't stand each other anymore. You hate each other's guts and you're mad at each other. You pass each other in the hallway and you go blankety blank you. And it's not about, I like you so much, let's go get naked. So how does that happen with two people who go to the altar, who see each other as the most wonderful thing? You are the most wonderful thing that's happened to me. And I am choosing to spend the rest of my life with you. And however number of years fast forward, you end up in the divorce court or you end up hiring me to mediate your divorce. How does that happen? How can two people who love each other so much to make that commitment then turn upside down? How does love turn into fear? So today I want to talk about one of the aspects of negative emotions, a small thing that can become a huge thing that can either transform us from where we are and elevate us to a consciousness of joy and happiness, or it can dig a hole so deep that we fall through the abyss and every day is one deep, dark, unending hole. It's still the same energy. Energy, the qi, we call it in Chinese, that fuels everything in our emotional space. And that energy has two options. One side is love. You flip it over is fear. It's the same energy. It takes as much energy to be passionate about something as it does to be worried about something. It's the same energy, but the choice is yours. It's just like going into the supermarket. You can buy this brand box of cereal or you can buy that brand box of cereal. And one box of cereal may nurture you, the other box may kill you. So I see these energies as little bubbles of fear, right? We know that everything we feel that doesn't make us feel good is fear. I define fear as a small amount of anger, as a small bubble of fear that you feel inside you. It's in there somewhere floating about. And then suddenly something trips you, triggers you. Anger is not planned. You don't wake up in the morning and meditate and say, let's see how I can be so very angry today at so-and-so. Let's plot to make this day a miserable one. We don't do that, right? We don't plan to be angry. Anger always happens when we are not paying attention, when we don't plan it. It just comes. So it's like this little bubble of energy, like the virus is inside you, but nothing happens. You just know it's there until something triggers it. And boom, snakes will fall out of your mouth. If you're a loud kind of angry person, or if you're the kind of person who've been enculturated to be quietly angry. I've worked with clients who've been so very angry, and yet when in trance, I help the client face the perpetrator. They will say something very benign. Now imagine a young girl who's been raped by her father, and we do the healing space where the young girl is facilitated to be able to address the person who hurt her. And the person will say, you did a bad thing. That's not very nice. Well, I said, are you angry? Oh, I'm furious. I said, you don't sound very angry. So you look at the huge disconnect between what you feel here and what you express here. That energy gap is what's going to come out and manifest in strange ways, right? You might get a boil or a wart, or you might get a rash. You know how some people are so angry, their face look like they've been burnt. It comes out in strange places. So unmitigated, unexpressed anger is a very dangerous thing. So now you did not resolve that anger, that fear energy. Guess what? We are such hoarders. We like to hoard things. We like to hoard emotions. We like to hoard energy. So we collect more and more bubbles of fear in our life. So much so that we feel like we're walking on eggshells. This is not the psychologist's definition of anxiety. I don't diagnose. This is my little tool to help people understand where they are. It's like my string of beads here. You have one bead, a little bit of anger, right? Now suddenly I collected enough beads. I've got a necklace of angry bubbles in my consciousness, and you feel anxious. It feels like there's an itch somewhere, but you don't know where to scratch. And you get triggered and you get short-tempered and you don't know why. And you're always anxious, always worrying, oh, I'm going to get fired today. I have people I worked with, they keep saying, I'm sure this Friday they're going to fire me. I'm sure this Friday they're going to fire me. Well, I said to her, after she said it about 5 times, I said, I'm sure this Friday they will fire you. Because you are creating, you're putting so much energy into creating that energy, that reality that you so crave, because your subconscious does not discriminate. Your subconscious is very literal. You keep saying, I'll get fired this Friday. It will become true. That's a state I call anxiety, just walking on eggshells. Now, we collect more and more. Imagine I have 10 strings of necklaces like this I put around my neck will be falling over, right? And so when we are feeling anxious more days in the week than not, I call it depression, because there's a whole spectrum of feelings. People who feel so much anxiety, so anxious about so many things more days than not, will feel like on one end of the spectrum, I just want to crawl into my little shell and don't bother me. They withdraw completely. They don't want to see anyone. They don't want to talk to anyone. I'm not a psychologist, but they get what the psychologists will call a state of depression. On the other hand, there will be a person who would drive fast motorcycles, drive fast cars, fly airplanes, jump off bungee cords, go skydiving. I actually worked with someone who took 3 shifts in 2 hospitals. I'm so busy. Create a logical excuse for not engaging in meaningful relationships. I'm so busy. Well, I have to provide for my family. So the guy says, well, I'm a very famous surgeon. I have to do this. You know, patients need me. People die if I walk away. You know, they feel this godlike thing that if they walk away, people will die because they're irreplaceable. So the ego gets so big, it fills up the space and then some. Either end of this, people are avoiding life and living because they're so scared. Even when you get to this massive amount of fear, look, there's still gaps, right? I draw them in little dark clouds. There are little gaps. It's not every day a dark day. There are some spaces where light comes through. However, there will come a time when you have so much fear energy in you that you can't see the light, you can't see a solution. I call it despair. Despair is when you feel totally stuck and you give up. There's no hope for me. There is no solution for me. I'm so scared. I can't even take another step forward. And despair can happen in 2 different ways. Despair can turn into self-destruction, or despair can turn into destroying others, or both. And so you see the senseless, random shootings, that the poor individual is so distressed that the only way to have any form of relief is to go cause massive hurt to someone else. And then after that, they despair and they know that they've done something bad. And then they sink into the deep dark abyss and say, I don't deserve to be alive. And they turn the gun on themselves. When something like that happens, it's very sad. It's all anger and fear blown out of proportion. No one should be so alone to get to that state. Whenever something like that happens, it's not just the person's fault. We have, as a society, failed the individual by not loving them, by not teaching them how to love themselves. This gives a picture of what fear can do to all of us. And I think everyone here would nod their head if they say, have you ever been angry? if you haven't, I can remedy that very quickly. In January of 1995, when I drove away in the snow, a life of 16 years, I was scared to death. Never driven more than 200 miles away from home. I have to leave behind the life I have known and to start over in Texas. I was very scared. But I realized at that moment, two choices I can make. I can be scared, angry, blame, and curse my way to Texas. Or I can take a breath and accept it and say, okay, this is where I am. Expending all my energy in blaming and angry and all that is not going to help me, help him or the children. And who knows, I may meet with an accident with so much anger behind the wheel. It can be very dangerous. And then I learned something which I want to share today. I think it's a very small thing, but a very big thing. That I realized that it takes as much energy to be angry, to hate, to blame, as it does to forgive. What's the opposite spectrum of anger? The anatomy of anger is this. Anger is when you don't feel good about yourself. Anger is when you're scared that you're not good enough. Anger is when you don't feel deserving of love. But it's a very hard thing to admit and bear, isn't it? So the easy solution is, it's all your fault. So anger gives us an excuse to find a target. Think about it for a moment. If I can only blame you for all the bad things that happened to me, I am home free. I don't have to take any responsibility for being imperfect. It's you, it's your fault. If only my husband would take the garbage out, right? I would still be married to him today. You can blame people when something bad happens. Oh, I broke this mug because my 1-year-old grandchild didn't put away his toy and I stepped on his truck, slipped and fell and broke my precious mug. Wow, that is most ridiculous. He's 1 year old, right? But I got to blame somebody because I can't blame myself for being negligent and not clean up at the end of the day. If you look to and remember the last time you felt anger, what did it feel like? And what did you do about it? I was so angry that the customer service at the Walmart will not exchange this faulty product. Right? I spent $25 buying it. I went home and there was this rip at the bottom of the blouse and I won my money back. And they said, did you not see it's on clearance? It says all sales final. And now I'm mad, right? I'm screaming at the person. Well, you see that a lot in customer service business. So what's wrong with that? It's wrong with that because it's so much easier for me to blame the store. How dare you sell faulty product and cheat me of my money? But really, I'm angry at myself. You stupid woman, why do you want to take that stupid bait? You know that blouse is worth $200, you pay $25 for it, and you expect it to be perfect. And now the universe is punishing you for being greedy. You want a $200 blouse for 20 bucks, and it's come back to bite you. Why is it cheap? It's cheap because it's broken. And now you want your money back and they won't give it back to you. So instead of saying, oh, I made out, I paid 20 bucks for a $200 product. Now you are negative $20 with a faulty product. So who are you blaming? Not yourself. Heavens forbid. Got to blame the shop, right? I'm just giving a very mild example. How many of us have driven along the highway, somebody cuts in front of you and you give them the bird? Or worse still, I have been a passenger with people driving. For the next 10 miles, the driver is cursing that guy who cut in front of him. And I said, you know, he can't hear you. He never heard you in the first place. And I'm the one getting all this bad energy. It's like you coming to my house and pooping all over my floor. You are contaminating my airspace. So why do people do that? Because the anger is burning inside the person, it has to come out. In a way, it's healthy for the person to blah, 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 and vomit out all the stuff, except that somebody else has to breathe that air, just like the virus, right? He's spitting all the viral particles in the air, and you're breathing it in, and it's toxic. If you happen to live with people or work amongst people like that, I would say put a mask on and put earmuffs. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to breathe it. In fact, I recommend run like hell. Go someplace else. Go to the forest and talk to the trees. They will respond, I promise you. So now this anger business, how do we resolve that? Because we are all human and we all feel. We feel fear, we feel love, and we feel all the manifestations of emotions from fear and from love. Nobody wants to live life in fear. Oftentimes, clients come into the office and I said, can you imagine your life with no fear? Sometimes a client would come to me for anger management. They're being sent by their boss. If you don't take care of this anger issue, next time you have an outburst, you get the pink slip. That's the end of your job. I once worked with an anesthesiologist who was given that ultimatum. Happened, his boss had my book. He says, you take this and you find this woman, get some help. You've been seeing your psychiatrist for 3 years and it didn't do anything for you. So how does it work? How do you turn that anger into something productive? When the individual saw me, the source of all his anger in the operating theater was always somebody else's fault. He yells at his scrub nurse, he yells at everyone, he throws a temper tantrum, and then of course it's all this one person's fault. When this person was wrongly accused of something at the risk of losing her job, this individual actually testified in her favor as a reference to help this person whom, when he came to my office for the first time, wants to put this nurse in a blender and turn on the switch. And in the end, he turned around, he said, I will appear in front of the committee to save her job. At that moment, I said, whoa, wait a minute. Isn't this the target of your anger, the source of all your anger? And now you want to help her. And suddenly the person sat down and thought it through and said, you know what, you're right. I'm not angry anymore. So I realized something magical just shifted. How do you get away from anger? To let it out, that energy to let it out at someone is destructive. To not let it out and turn it inside is destructive. But anger is still there. What are you going to do? So there's always a third solution. If we turn the negative into positive, magic will happen. Now, in the example I just gave you, what I noticed happened was this. In a split second, after we had worked in several sessions, there was a shift of consciousness. There was a shift of perception. And all of a sudden, he was able to step out of his own self-absorbance and to look at another person as a valid individual. In the past, you are all the sources of my anger. You are bad people, blah, 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 blah. And the fingers are pointing out like this. When I said, just put your hands together and be still for a moment, step out of your body and take a look at this person who's been wrongly accused of a misdeed that would cause her to lose her job. For the first time, he was able to see this person is a person. It's not her fault. And so in that change of heart, instead of pointing fingers at her a few weeks ago, he turned around, he said, she has been a good scrub nurse for years. I've worked alongside her. I never saw her work because he couldn't see beyond his own defense ego. So what happened was, the anger energy turned polarity. Anger is in the negative polarity. He turned into compassion. The opposite feeling of anger is compassion. He started feeling kindness towards the individual. And to me, compassion is kindness in action. We can act without compassion, but we cannot be compassionate without action. It's not enough just to be kind. To be kind means I think nice things of you. I can sit here and think nice things about everyone and everyone, but you would never know it unless I actually do something nice for you. It may be you've just lost a pet that you've owned for years and years. I come over and sit with you. I don't have to say anything. I come over and sit with you. That's compassion. Don't have to talk about it. I don't have to be your therapist today. I just want to be your friend. Can I just sit here with you? Compassion is to feel with. Co-passion has to be two ways. Can I just sit here and hold your hand? Or can I just sit here and hold space if it's inappropriate for me to hold your hand? I can sit here and pray with you. I can sit here and just be quiet and meditate with you. In that moment, anger is fear just taking off at random and crazy. If we stay still, for God says, be still and know that I am with you. Stay still and let God do magic. When you have a moment to be still and you take that breath, you're able to dissipate the anger. And when that anger settles down, you collect the dust and you turn it into something good. And you do the best you can. Good things require effort. And it takes effort to love people you don't like. It's so easy to love people you like. It takes a lot more energy to love people you don't like. I see so many cases of marriages breaking up. And I say, if only for one moment, you go back to the moment when you said yes to the proposal and think of one good thing you can say about the partner and just hold that thought. Hold that thought of positive emotion and it will grow. I'm not asking you to turn it into big romantic passion and take him home and play doctor. I am just simply saying, can you accord this person one iota of kindness? And just for one moment, be kind. If you want to tame that anger, just like a train that's running off wild in the wrong direction, you want to stop that train first before you can redirect the train. So you just go stop, pause, take a deep breath, and things will rearrange themselves. There is nothing more powerful than simply say stop and take a breath. And every one of us have been wired in our DNA to know how to feel joy, to know how to feel peace, to know how to feel happiness. And each one of us has the capacity to be kind. It's just that we've forgotten how to be kind. So when anger turns into compassion, we have transformed that negative energy into positive energy. And the notion of compassion in this dynamic has a couple little things I want to speak to that are powerful in making big changes. But people say, I don't know how. You know, most people jump to forgiveness. Forgive him for all his trespasses, right? Forgive her for being such a horrible mother-in-law. Forgive your mother for never loving you. Forgive your mother for making all the mistakes and sending me to the wrong school. It's always somebody's fault. I laugh because everybody has a mother, so it's always the mother's fault. At the same time, when a person is so busy going down the rabbit hole in finding fault and looking for more and more negative things, if only we would just pause for a moment. I said, let's pretend for a moment we can take a trip back in time. If you had a mother who raised you, remember the moment she changed your poopy diapers. And you know, we think nothing of changing a poopy diaper on a baby. But how would you like to be changing a poopy diaper for your parent every single day? I know some of us had taken care of elderly parents till they die. I didn't take care of my parents till they died. I took care of my father, but my mother died. I was not there. But I have taken care of my grandmother before she died. And yes, poopy diapers and all. Somehow that doesn't have the same emotion, right? You are smiling while you're changing a baby's poopy diaper. You're not going to say to your grandmother, oh, it's so cute, you just pooped in your pants. Why is that? Why is it abhorrent for us to give back the love that we received? Somehow growing up, we have been robbed by society and the things we learn. We've been robbed of our pure essence. Our innocence have been robbed by material things, by media teaching us the wrong things. We have been robbed of decency. We have been robbed of our compassion. We have been robbed of our capacity to love. We need to claim that back. And so today, the small piece is for us to be aware. In the first 3 sessions of staying calm in the midst of crisis, I talked about the meditative states that help us stay calm in the midst of crisis. So if we don't know what we don't know, it doesn't matter what we don't know. That's called unconscious incompetency. Until what we don't know comes back to bite us. Now you're aware what you don't know and you need to know, but you don't know what you need to know and you don't know where to go. Most people are walking around in what I call that self-blindness state. And that's not a comfortable feeling, you know. And some people, when they get to that stage, they seek teachers, they seek religion, they seek therapists. They want to find a solution to feel better. And some people find the wrong solutions. They find the wrong spirit. They abuse alcohol, chemicals, food, sex, gambling, and people. And they're trying to fill an empty spiritual space with the wrong spirit. If you find the right solution, you go from being unconsciously incompetent to becoming consciously competent. Now you learn new things, and it's awkward. People are very resistant to change. I don't like this. So I tell people, when you make the right choices, it's not about being comfortable with your choice. It's about knowing that it's the right thing to do, and you will work through it until it becomes your new habit. If you stop now because, oh, I don't know, I can't write with my left hand. But I tell you what, I promise you, if I chop off your right hand, you will learn how to write with your left hand faster than you can imagine. We are resistant to adapt. So when we get to adopting and adapting to good habits, in time, we will embrace and embody those good behaviors until it is natural. So we do it unconsciously. You see someone suffering on the street. You don't have to think and go through a committee meeting in your brain to see what you're going to do. You stop and you help. You see an accident. You don't even have to be a doctor. I think one time I saw a motorcyclist just hit something and flew a trajectory right in front of us. I told my husband, pull over, pull over. He says, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know, but pull over. I went over there, and it's nice to see several people stopped to help. And it turns out one of them was a nurse. And so I stepped aside, but I was able to help calm the person down so he doesn't have to bleed more than he needs to. We can always do something to help. So this whole idea of going back to, first, we must be aware. Be aware of anger. Be aware of anger. Be aware that anger exists because we don't take responsibility for our own behavior. We are angry because we are resisting taking responsibility for our own behavior. I believe that everything that happens to us because of us, because we made bad choices. The good news is you're still alive. The bad news is you made a bad choice. The better news is you can make a new choice. And that third solution is what we work with. That little space between good and bad is where we can consciously make a difference. All right, choose to lean to the positive. Give the positive 51%. Choose positive in your favor. And then you will learn that it becomes a habit. Every time you're in a crossroad, right now, most of us choose the negative emotion when we are stressed. If something didn't work out, you immediately wonder what you've done wrong. And after that, you start blaming other people. You think it's very noble. Oh, what did I do wrong? So we go like a pendulum. First, you're the victim, and then you're the hero because it's all their fault. Somewhere in between lies the truth, isn't it? Nobody is 100% bad. Nobody is 100% good. I said, I can only work with what I own. So if I look at the problem, I ask myself, how much of this responsibility do I bear? If I have 60% responsibility, then I have, of this whole equation, I have 60% of the power to change the equation. So the hardest piece of the work I do is to help people see the truth for what it is and to accept the responsibility for their role in it, because when you own it, you can disown it. You can't give away something you don't own. This was my part in it. Let me fix this part. I can't fix your part because I don't know how to fix your part. But I do know I can fix my part. I'm going to do something about it right here and right now. So in that instant, my analysis is, in that instance, you forgive yourself. Most people think the big deal in therapy is to go forgive the other person. No, I have learned that's a good start. When people say, oh, I've spent the last 5 years in therapy learning to forgive my mother because she didn't love me and it's all my fault. It's all her fault. I'm a mess because I had bad parents. I'm a mess because my uncle abused me. I'm this because I grew up in a poor neighborhood or what have you. So when we get off the blaming chair and start saying, you know what? Just like the t-shirt I saw in the flea market, I'm fat, you are ugly, but I can go on a diet. If I own some responsibility for being fat, I can do something about it. Be aware when anger strikes. Remember, the angrier you are, the less responsible you are. So if you start chipping at it like eating an elephant one bite at a time, if I can just take one small piece of this responsibility that contributes to this anger in me, I can do something about it. I can do something about it. And then you step by step, as you own more of the problem, you also have the power to create more of the solution. So the first step to get out of anger is to forgive yourself for taking the wrong choice in blaming other people. Okay, that's my little idea today. I hope it's in some way useful. Like I said, don't send me any money. Please take this, share it, and make somebody smile. And what I'd like to do is to take 1 minute of your time. Let's close our eyes. Let's stay quiet for a moment and turn our eyeballs inside and look inside our consciousness and be aware that we are good. Be aware that we are spawned from goodness. And we want to tune into the goodness and the godliness within. Find that spot of light that hangs between your belly button and your spine. This is your lower dantian. This is the seat of your soul. Take a deep breath and intensify that light. And now you see this ball of light, bright and shining. And take a deep breath and allow a ray of divine light from heaven coming to the top of your forehead, flows through the inner channel of your consciousness and connects with your dantian. And now you are completely illuminated. Feel this divine light spread through your consciousness, pushing out any fears, any anger, any doubts. Know that when you are still, you are connected with the source. You are connected with spirit. You are connected with the goodness in you. And let the goodness in you flow and radiate and keep you at peace, no matter what crises go on within you or around you. You know that you're home, you know that you're safe, and you know that you're loved, no matter what. Now take a deep breath if you accept this truth and embrace it. And then your next step is to embody it and own it and live it and go forth living in love, with love, for love, every day and in every way. Give yourself a smile, take a deep breath, put your palms together, meaning that you're greeting yourself, body and spirit. Take a deep breath, gently open your eyes. You can leave a comment below the video. Please subscribe to our channel. There's additional information on my website. So send me any comments and tell me how I can do a better job of this. Thank you all for your patience. The end.